Everyone thinks it's in our default nature to do so. And our thoughts shape our lives from how much we produce, what we earn, the type of relationships that we have, and our daily default emotions. The problem arises that when we follow the trajectory of our default thoughts, it leads us in the direction that we don't want to go to, only because our default thoughts are governed by false beliefs, incorrect information, biases, and presuppositions. The good news is that by changing our default thoughts, or at least analyzing the way that we think, we can drastically alter the trajectory of our lives and we can actually attain the goals and the outcomes that we put forth for ourselves. This is done through critical thinking. Let me explain how critical thinking has actually benefited me in my life. I remember that I was under the same assumption as a lot of people that when it came to weight loss and being skinny, or at least having a decent physique, that it was all genetics. I used to be a big boy. And I remember going to the doctor one day and he said, "Your weight is out of control and you're approaching high cholesterol and you need to make a change. Otherwise, your health will go completely into the worst." And I thought, okay, you know what? Let me go ahead and do some cardio because I'd always seen on TV that's what got rid of extra weight. You could just do a bunch of running, sprinting, cardio, any type of cardio, bicycling, anything. I remember I biked, I ran on the track, I did a bunch of swimming. And after a year of this intense, grueling hard work, my weight had not changed. I was still extremely overweight. And I remember thinking, okay, after 1 year of this, nothing has changed. And yet I see people making transformations all the time. I remember I used to see those before and after pictures, and I thought, well, why couldn't I, try to do it like them? I tried supplements, I tried all this other stuff. And it wasn't until I actually really started to doubt what I had heard and decided, hey, I need to do some research for myself, that I started reading up about all different types of weight loss. And of course, there were some bad ones. They had different types of bogus pills, like I don't know if you guys remember, there was used to be this thing called hydroxycut. And I remember trying that. It was one of the worst things for me, but it didn't do anything other than increase my heartbeat. And I started looking at the calories for things like Kit Kat. I remember I was looking at the calories for a Kit Kat bar. It was 250 calories. And I remember thinking, Jesus Christ, this would take me at least 30, 45 minutes to burn off with pretty good intensity, whether it's elliptical, Stairmaster, anything. And I thought there had to be a better way. And it wasn't until one of my gym buddies said, instead of trying to burn that 250 calories, why not just not eat the Kit Kat in the first place? And it was such an easy, simple solution. I remember hitting myself over the head thinking, well, I mean, he makes absolute sense. Why not just not eat it? And it got me looking more into calorie labels, calorie counting, which led me to learn about calorie deficits, all these other things. And it tremendously benefited me in my life because after that, and after downloading a couple of apps, like calorie tracking apps, then it was able to make me see things like almost in numbers. And if I reduce my calories by this much, then I should lose this much. And I remember in 2 years, I think it was like 2 years, I ended up losing 60 pounds. And I became the leanest I'd ever been in my life, at least, past 21. And I was just shocked at the body transformation I had. I mean, people were treating me differently. I was able to try on clothes that I never had before. And I would say my mental health, or at least my confidence, just went up through the roof. So for me, it was an overall net positive. Another area of my life where critical thinking has helped me considerably has been career. For example, I was put into a hiring position at my job, and the person who was in charge of hiring prior to me had left the company, and there was nobody there who could teach me the ropes. I had to learn everything on my own. However, there wasn't a manual or a booklet or some sort of training that I could have normally in a position or a switch up like this. And so here I am, not knowing a single thing about hiring and put in charge of such a key part of a business, which was to hire the right type of people, and failing over and over just because I was too stubborn to consider the fact that there might be alternative ways to hire rather than what I had heard from other people. And it wasn't until I started doubting myself. I wouldn't even call it doubting myself, just looking at the results versus my actions and considering it like a scientist, just looking at what works and what doesn't work. It sounds very simple to do, but the truth is, it takes somebody, I wouldn't say humble enough, but somebody who is able to look at things objectively and then make changes. That's really what it is. That's, I guess, at the core crux of critical thinking. It's the ability to look at varying sources of information, experimenting, trying it out, and seeing what works ultimately in order to achieve your goals. And the reason I say that is this: in that hiring position, when I didn't know how to hire, not only did I fail considerably, I failed over and over. The reason I failed over and over was because I was hyper fixated on the idea that it's my way does work. This is what I've heard other people say. This is what I think works. And I was so stubborn, and I just hyper fixated on trying to make it work. Kind of like what they say, trying to peg a square rod through a circular hole, something like that. You're just like trying to like force it in, and it just won't work. Part of critical thinking comes into play whenever you look at varying sources of information objectively. You are okay with doubting and considering that what your initial assertions might have been are actually not practical in the real world. And it wasn't until I started looking at different resources on hiring and actually experimenting with it and not trying to be so stubborn and think like it's my way or the highway that actually I became a better person in HR. I was actually able to hire way more effectively. I was able to hire the right people, and I didn't have people laughing in my face anymore whenever they rejected my job offer, for example. And it changed the tables, or it turned the tables a lot in my favor just by critically thinking about my strategies and my actions. And for that, I really am very grateful for critical thinking. It's one of the things that made me want to make this video. Another arena of life that I think critical thinking has helped me a lot would be relationships. I used to think that relationships were pretty transactional and contractual. What I mean by that is this: I thought that the amount of love I gave to the other person is the same amount that I should receive in return. So I would shower the other person in affection and love and gifts and so on. But I hardly ever got that same reciprocation. I think at most it would be like 10, 20%. It was pretty low. And it got me thinking, like, hey, I thought from like reading about love and watching movies and watching TV shows and hearing my friends' advice that love would be just the way that they described, but it was never like that. Love is nothing like that at all. Love is more personal. Most TV shows and movies actually blow it completely into unrealistic expectations and standards, and unfortunately that's not indicative of real life. So now that I've spoken about why critical thinking is important and how it's helped me in my life, let me explain to you what exactly critical thinking is. You're not just doing what others are telling you to do, you're paying attention to it and you're thinking about it clearly. You're questioning, you're analyzing, you're interpreting, you're evaluating, and you're making a judgment about it. You're also analyzing counter arguments and points and looking for validity in them. So, there's three main reasons why people don't want to think critically. I mean, they know it's important, but there's three main reasons why they don't. The first is effort. It takes a lot of effort to think critically. Um, you have to consider all different possible outcomes. You have to be okay with the fact that your initial goal might not actually be suitable for you and there's a different alternative goal. There's a lot of effort involved when it comes to switching paths from one goal to another, or pivoting, as they say in business. And that is one of the major reasons a lot of people don't think critically. It's just hard. It just takes effort. But there's another reason why: fear of the unknown. So, whenever you start to think critically, one of the fears that you have, that you will start to notice in yourself, is that there's so many things that you don't know or you haven't even considered before, especially now that you start to expose yourself to counter arguments. Good example of this would be people who switch from political parties, like one political party to another. They often want to stay with the same political party that they've been a part of their entire lives, or the same ideology or dogma, because considering the opposition's arguments, or taking it into serious consideration, I should say, is actually kind of scary. Because one of the thoughts that come up is, well, what if I was wrong all this time? What if I wasted 30, 40 years of my life, playing for the wrong team, when in fact the other team is who I should have been playing for this entire time? The fear of the unknown is very scary, and is one of the other reasons that people, don't like to think critically. And then the last is the fear of being wrong. There's many times that, for example, you're in a relationship, and you start to not see the red flags everywhere, or at least maybe that you see them, but you're not considering them. You're not looking at it very clearly for what it really is. You start to ignore it. Mm. The fear of being wrong about somebody that you've invested all this time, or even a career switch, all this time in one job and now you want to switch to a different career. The fear of being wrong is one of the biggest perpetrators to not thinking critically. So I would say that these three obstacles are the biggest detractors to implementing critical thinking in our lives. In fact, I would argue that critical thinking is more important now than ever before. You have billion-dollar marketing agencies that their entire job is just to see how to get you emotional enough in order to change your behavior and buy their products. Those beer commercials you see on Super Bowl ads, where these guys are drinking Corona and a bunch of beautiful girls just come and see them. Or the fact that there's a designer watch that comes out, and it shows a well dressed man in a nice suit and he's walking to his corporate job, for example. Another example would be what I had mentioned earlier about my weight loss and hydroxycut. I saw like this before and after, transformation picture of this guy going from fat to fit, and there was hydroxycut, the label right there. And I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, thinking that, hey, this product would actually make me lose weight. It didn't. So, what are some of the dangers of not implementing critical thinking in your daily life? Well, I would say there's three main ones, and I'll start with the most important one first. You lack a sense of self reliance. You lack a sense of self reliance. So, what do I mean by that? I mean that normally, when you follow your default thoughts or you allow subconsciously the opinions of other people, friends, family, college professors, marketing agencies, whatever, to influence your decisions, realize that somebody is making a decision for you and it's not you. Somebody else is making a decision for you. The decisions that you should be making must be your own decisions. And the only way for you to do that is to open up and consider that there might be other avenues. Look at your actions objectively and try to see if they're getting you further or closer to your goals. If they're getting you further away from your goals, consider that there might be alternative strategies. Consider that, hey, maybe this goal might not be for you. Maybe it's time to pivot or course correct into an alternative goal that might be better suited for you. The second danger when it comes to not thinking critically would be that you won't be able to see blind spots. That's another big one. You won't be able to see that there's an alternative path for you, that if you actually thought for yourself, you might be in a different life. You might be living somewhere else. You might be with somebody else. You might be working for somebody else. Hell, you might have other people working for you. It just depends. You might be happier. You're so blind to the possibilities because you've been on this autopilot, socially conditioned default programming your entire life that you haven't considered that there might be other possibilities and sometimes the grass really is greener. And the third and last danger of not thinking critically would be that you relive the same problems again and again and again. You feel the same pain over and over and over again. And I would say that would be the ultimate danger of not thinking critically. The fact that you have put yourself in pain again and again. I would like to invite you to think critically for a second right now. Just take an analysis of your life. Just real quick, do this exercise with me. Think about your health. Do you think that you're living an optimally healthy lifestyle? Are there changes that you could make? If there are changes, what changes would you make? How do you go about finding the solutions to make those changes? Another way is relationships. Are there things that you're doing in your relationship, whether it's friends, family, romantic partner, in where you're sabotaging the relationship? Are there things that you could be doing better? Is the person the right one for you? Is the person not the right person for you? Do you see yourself with this person your entire life? Are there changes that you wish they would make? Are there changes that you're unhappy about you making? Think about these things. What about career? Are you happy with how much you're earning? Are you happy and confident in the position that you have? Has there been something else that you've been putting off for a long time? Has there been a promotion that you've been afraid to ask for or a raise? Think about these things. Let me list out a couple of the practical steps in where you can implement critical thinking. First, you need to stop mindlessly believing information from sources such as gurus, books, and medias. Second, you need to start asking questions about everything. Be a cynic, be critical, be skeptical, ask a lot of whys, ask what's important to you. The type of questions you ask will be open-ended. What this means is that they won't be questions with a yes or no. Why is the best type of question to ask, followed by what if. Try and find counterexamples, things that contradict your hypothesis, and explore them. You'll be surprised at how you uncover solutions that helps you in the long run by doing this. Test, test, test everything. Everything, over and over. And remember, there are two factors: curiosity and open-mindedness. Thank you for joining me in this short introduction to critical thinking and the importance of it. It's just a little primer that I wanted to throw out. Give me a like and subscribe if you do like this content, and share some comments or ways in where you feel like you've been lacking, things that you would like to get better at. For me, it gives me a good understanding of people and audience just to see if they're having some of the same issues as me. Anyway, thanks, guys. Peace.